46 years later, people still recognize the sound instantly. In 2008, the David Brown Celebrity Index found that 94% of American consumers recognized Pac-Man more than they recognized most human celebrities. Not Donkey Kong, not Space Invaders, not even Street Fighter, but Pac-Man. And that raises a question. Why? Why has this simple yellow circle survived multiple generations of gaming, while thousands of other arcade games faded into history? Today, I'm making the case that the original Pac-Man from 1980 isn't just iconic, it's the greatest arcade game of all time. Before Pac-Man, arcades were dominated by games about destruction. Games like Asteroids, Space Invaders, Tail Gunner, and Galaxian were king. But then, in 1980, Namco released something completely different. A bright yellow character eating dots in a maze. That sounds simple now, but at the time, it was revolutionary. Pac-Man was designed by Toru Iwatani, who wanted to create a game that appealed to everyone, not just young men obsessed with sci-fi shooters. In fact, it is one of the first video games designed with a women audience in mind. And it worked. Pac-Man exploded into a worldwide phenomenon. It was not just successful, it was a cultural event. There were cartoons, toys, lunchboxes, books, a hit song, and even cereal. People who had never touched arcade games suddenly knew who Pac-Man was. That level of mainstream popularity was basically unheard of for a video game in 1980. The game was so popular that arcades purchased entire rows of the game to accommodate public demand. Pac-Man didn't just succeed in the arcade industry, it helped define the arcade industry. Pac-Man was the first playable video game mascot. He chomped so that characters like Mario could run. Here's the real reason Pac-Man has survived for decades. The gameplay is nearly perfect. At first glance, it can look random, but Pac-Man is secretly one of the most intelligent designed arcade games ever made. Each ghost behaves differently, and that changes everything. Blinky aggressively chases you, Pinky tries to ambush you, Inky behaves unpredictably, and Clyde alternates between chasing and retreating. Combined, this ingenious programming trick creates an illusion of complex AI. The ghosts appear to coordinate their attacks and set traps for the player. This means that the game constantly creates tension. You're never reacting to just one enemy. You have to react to all four ghosts and plan your movements accordingly. And unlike many arcade games of the era, Pac-Man feels fair. There are no cheap tricks to kill the player. When you lose, it usually feels like it's your mistake. Because every death feels avoidable, and every run feels improvable. One of the most underrated parts of Pac-Man is the maze itself. It's carefully designed to create constant risk versus reward decisions. And that's a huge reason the game stays interesting after hundreds of plays. Take the bottom corners of the map. They are some of the most dangerous areas in the entire game. They're basically traps. There's limited escape routes, tight turns, and less room to react if ghosts close in. You can get boxed in fast. But those same dangerous corners are also incredibly valuable because they contain power pellets and opportunities for huge ghost combos. So the game constantly asks you, do you play it safe, or do you risk it for more points? Then you have the side tunnels. These act like temporary safety zones because Pac-Man moves through them faster relative to the ghost. But using them can be risky if a ghost enters the other side of the tunnel, leaving you with no way to escape. The center of the maze is another great example. It's more open and gives you multiple escape options, but it's also where ghost traffic becomes the most chaotic. So experienced players learn how to flow through the maze almost like driving through traffic. Every route matters, every turn matters. And the genius part is that the maze naturally creates tension without needing random generation or complicated mechanics. All one static screen. This allows you to easily track ghost movements and plan your next move. Yet, it creates endless dynamic situations because of how the ghosts interact with the map layout. The best Pac-Man players aren't just reacting to ghosts. They're managing territory, controlling space, and planning escape routes several seconds ahead. And that's why the maze design is so timeless. It turns an incredibly simple gameplay loop into something steeped with strategy. The greatest arcade games all share one thing. You can understand them in seconds. Pac-Man might be the best example of this. You don't need a tutorial. You see dots, you eat dots, you avoid ghosts. Done. But then, the depth slowly reveals itself. Players eventually discovered how each ghost targets the player, repeatable patterns, grouping techniques, timing strategies, and point optimization. And suddenly this simple maze game becomes almost chess-like. High-level Pac-Man is insane to watch because expert players aren't panicking. They're calculating, memorizing patterns, grouping ghosts, and making precise turns by cutting corners in order to make Pac-Man move just a little bit faster throughout the maze. And then there's the legendary perfect game. A maximum score Pac-Man run requires eating every dot, every fruit, every ghost, on every possible board until the game glitches out on the 256th level. Doing all that without making a single mistake. That level of mastery helped turn Pac-Man from a fun arcade game into a genuine competitive challenge, while also remaining fun for casual players. Few games can appeal to both hardcore and casual fans, but Pac-Man's difficulty is scaled to perfection. Players can simply avoid ghosts and eat dots. Naturally, as they improve, they start to notice how each ghost differs in their approach in chasing Pac-Man. Competitive players can continue this trend and learn grouping techniques or eventually memorize some patterns. Patterns can sound like a cheat code, but pulling them off is far more difficult than simply memorizing a path. Some of the more complex patterns require near-perfect levels of timing, with any input delay causing an untimely death. This scalability of gameplay depth is what helped the game feel so fresh and addictive when it came out, and is a big reason why it remains enjoyable to this day. Pac-Man's presentation is timeless. The visuals are incredibly simple, but unforgettable. That bright yellow character, the neon maze, and the colorful ghosts. Even people who have never played the game recognize them instantly. That's a testament to great design. And the sound design? Iconic. The Waka Waka sound while eating pellets might be one of the most recognizable sound effects in gaming history. The ghost siren creates tension. The power pellet sound creates excitement. And the death animation brings humor from failure instead of just being frustrating. Pac-Man stays stressful and exciting without becoming miserable. And because the visuals are so clean and readable, Pac-Man still feels playable today. In comparison, the art style of a lot of arcade games in the 1980s feel remarkably more dated. When people imagine classic arcade iconography, they usually imagine Pac-Man. The rows of glowing cabinets, crowds watching skilled players, people chasing high scores, all impossible to imagine without our hungry hero. Pac-Man became the symbol of the arcade era, and unlike many classic games, it appealed to almost everyone. Kids played it, adults played it, women played it, both hardcore and casual gamers played it. That kind of broad appeal is exceptionally rare, especially in gaming. And because the game relied on high scores instead of an ending, Pac-Man had endless replayability. Every run became, can I do better this time? And because the gameplay loop is so tight, you think you can. It may be the poster child for that just one more game feeling. That core arcade philosophy still exists in modern games today. Whether it's speedrunning, ranked multiplayer, or leaderboard grinding, you can trace a lot of that mentality back to arcade games like Pac-Man. There are arcade games with better graphics, more complexity, more buttons, more mechanics, but greatness isn't about complexity, it's about execution. And Pac-Man executes almost everything perfectly. It's instantly understandable, endlessly replayable, mechanically deep, visually iconic, culturally important, and still genuinely fun today. That last part matters most, because the true test of a great arcade game is simple. Can someone walk up to the cabinet decades later and still immediately have fun? Pac-Man absolutely passes that test. And honestly, that's why I think the original Pac-Man isn't just one of the greatest arcade games ever made, it's the greatest arcade game ever made. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think is the greatest arcade game of all time? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more retro gaming and arcade content. Thank you for watching.